Welcome back. It's always a good day when I wake up and I realize that today's the day that I am allowed to interview another really cool, intriguing person for the next room. Before I introduce Amanda, I'm going to just do a little bit of house cleaning. The cities that have been really showing up for the podcast, these are in no particular order, but my top cities: Chicago, Illinois. I love Chicago. I spent a couple years there back in the 90s. Ellicott City, Maryland. Thank you very much for downloading and listening. Houston, Texas is a big market. I don't know what's going on in Houston. I know you guys like it bigger down there, so thank you for spreading the word. San Diego, California, of course. Thank you, San Diego. This is where I live, so I'm very, very happy that you would support the next room. Also, Sydney, Australia. Yay, Sydney in the house. Traverse City, Michigan. Stony Plain, Alberta. And, Lawrence, Kansas. So those are my top cities. The podcast is available through Google, Spotify, Apple. It really, really, really helps when you download and you share and you give me a great 5-star rating. That's always helpful too. I really appreciate everybody that has been listening to the show and sharing the show. And I'm really grateful. You're going to love this show. Okay, so I met Amanda Meeks through the Beautiful Dying Expo. And Amanda works for this fabulous nonprofit called permanent.org. And you are going to be so stoked that you tuned in today, because there is a very special offer for all of the Next Room listeners that we will post a link for. But Amanda's going to tell you all about what permanent.org is all about. So she is the Community and Partnerships Manager for permanent.org. Amanda Meeks, welcome to the Next Room.
Thanks, Jane. I'm super excited to be here and talk with you again.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I love that a lot of your listeners are from Chicago, since that's also where I'm from originally. And it's very near and dear to my heart.
Great city. Boy, what a good city. I was in the record business when I lived there, and WXRT, come on, greatest radio station, in my opinion, in the United States, or at least one of the top 3. Great blues bars, awesome restaurants, of course, Wrigleyville. Come on. I also went to White Sox games. I mean, I was an equal opportunity baseball lover when I lived in that town. Super cool. So I'm really, really glad Chicago is one of our top markets.
Yeah.
So Amanda, talk to me about Permanent. I know quite a bit about it because I've interviewed you for the Beautiful Dying Expo, but I'm not sure that my audience would know exactly what permanent.org is and does, because it's a great service. So talk to me about what the organization actually does.
Sure. So the Permanent Legacy Foundation is the nonprofit that backs permanent.org, which is our platform designed for personal digital archiving, basically. So it's a place where anyone can go, any individual. You don't have to be a notable figure like on Wikipedia or other types of platforms. You don't have to have connections to a university, for example, to create your own archives and your own digital legacy. So to leave something behind that is really meaningful to you and is really intentional for the next generation, whether you're leaving that for the next generation of your family members, or whether you want to preserve your life story for some other reason. Our stories are so important. They help us really understand the world that we live in, and they can really help shape future worldviews and understandings of our time now. So we exist for that purpose.
I love it. I mean, my mom was the keeper of all of the obituaries in the family. And, those were passed down to me within the family Bible. And I have all of these, pieces of paper. I have prayer cards, and I have all these things that mom had saved for, I've got family and friends. And I've been like, what do I do with this stuff? Because I don't want to lose it. And I need to pass it down. And, to have your history recorded like that, like it doesn't seem like a week doesn't go by that somebody calls me and says, hey, when was grandpa born, or what year did, because I have it all now because it was all recorded in these, little articles or prayer cards. So how exactly do I take my family and all of the historical stuff that I've collected, and how do I save it? Like, walk me through that process.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And this is really a huge part of our membership. A lot of folks are really into their genealogy and family history. And the starting point for all of that is really, collecting the physical items, the obituaries, the photos, the birth certificates, all of that type of stuff. And then digitizing it. So we don't do any of the digitizing on permanent, but once it is digitized, then you can upload those types of things. And we accept any type of file.
Okay.
So, whether that's images, JPEGs, PDFs, video, and, really any kind of file that, people are familiar with these days, you can add it to permanent. So once something is digital, it's ready to be uploaded. And basically, like the platform, for those who are less familiar with personal digital archiving, it allows you to organize files so that you can find things later. You can create tags. We allow for custom metadata. And, that makes it really easy to say, okay, what year was Grandpa Joe born? And you can go and like search for Grandpa Joe in a whole archive, and find, the birth certificate or whatever it is you're looking for that would provide that information. And the nice thing too is that it allows for collaboration. So if you are maybe the keeper of the family heirlooms and the family history, you might be the one to set up your archive, but that doesn't mean that your second cousin in Australia doesn't also have photos and things that would be of interest to you and the rest of the family.
Mm.
So you can add them to your archive as like a manager or an editor, for example, and then they can also contribute. And yeah, and it's all really affordable. So one of the things that is really nice about us being a nonprofit is that we work on an endowment model.
Mm-hmm.
And so anytime somebody signs up and purchases storage, that money goes into an endowment, and it's technically a donation, and it's $10 per gigabyte. But that endows the sustainability of the organization, essentially. So it'll cover the cost of long-term storage, so that your materials are there indefinitely as long as we're around. And unlike other platforms, we don't charge recurring fees.
Right. That's nice. I
Yeah.
like that a lot. So it's $10 per gigabyte.
Mm-hmm.
And then you pay as you go. So say I want to record videos for future grandchildren and upload those, and I might need more space, then I just pay as I go.
Yep.
Okay, so that's great. You answered the one question about looping other family members in. What about, and this is a biggie, what about security? Because here I'm putting all of our family history online, and there's so many people that there's some tough customers on the planet that use your information for their benefit.
Mm-hmm.
How do I protect that?
That is a great question also. We use like pretty strict security measures, in terms of like having two-factor login authentication
Okay.
and all of that. And our system is very secure. the one thing to note about adding your family's history is that you have control over what you make public and what you keep private.
Oh, good.
And you can
Okay.
also find an in between where you, let's say you create a folder that you want to share with somebody. You can just create a link and you can just share that folder with specific people, whether they have permanent accounts or not. So it is really like within your control to keep things private or to make them completely public. So that's something that that we value a lot, or specifically privacy and security.
I love that it's a nonprofit and that the funds go into an endowment fund. Um, Tell me how permanent.org gives back. Like if you just tuned in, Amanda Meeks is my guest today. She's with permanent.org, really cool organization. So it has nonprofit status. What is it that Permanent does to have that status and give back to the public?
Well, I mean, we're kind of in a unique position because we are the first like consumer grade storage platform with this particular focus on personal digital archiving for long-term preservation, which is a really important thing for the general public. We make that accessible to everybody. But the other thing that I'm really passionate about in my work with Permanent is what's known as the Byte4Byte program. And the Byte4Byte program is a storage granting program for nonprofits and like think of like your local grassroots organizations, historical societies, libraries, museums, collectives, tribal organizations, and so on. And basically, folks are able to apply for 100 free gigabytes
Wow.
where they can create their own community archives.
Mm.
And right now we have about 25 people or organizations who are participating in that program, and we're actively accepting applications at the moment. So yeah, it's open to any nonprofits and small organizations that are doing community archiving. And it really is like my favorite part of my job is the community and partnerships manager. I get to work with people who are really preserving their community's history as well as focusing on like individual legacy and what one leaves behind.
I love that. I could see why that would be your favorite part of it, because if you just think about the information that is kept within a library, for instance, and the fact that, Byte4Byte, this program allows these nonprofits to store their information. And my mind is going to, my goodness, what about, there's the veterans associations and you really could, this has such far-reaching capabilities. Great service. Permanent.org is the name of the organization. Let's talk about, is it just in the United States or is this a global reach? Because my show is obviously heard in other countries. How does that work?
Yeah, it's open to anybody. And
Good.
yeah, I would say, we probably have most of our members living within the United States, but we do have folks who are all over the world,
Okay.
and also organizations that are starting to work with us as well from outside of the US. So yeah.
That's really cool. Um, Another thought I had too was, in this day and age when everybody is walking around with a computer in their pocket, um, and I have children that are in their 20s, they don't want my volumes of paper.
Mhm.
And I have all these photo albums, and I'm thinking, what are they going to do with them? And I
Mhm.
don't want them just, I mean, I would hope that they wouldn't just push them out to the curb or throw them in a trash bin. So what I could do while I'm well and healthy and on this side, I think is like my mind is going, oh, I go through and collect the ones that I really want them to have. My mom and dad's wedding photos, my grandparents' wedding photos, birth certificates and, confirmation certificates or baptism certificates. And I could actually start creating a family legacy digital for Thomas and Betty, which I think that they would really appreciate. Knowing my kids, they would go, "Oh my God, mom was ahead of her time," because they don't want the paper. You know, it's so funny. I'll write them a check, and they're like, "Really, mom?" I mean, it's like, can't you use Venmo or PayPal or I don't know, Zillow or whatever and it's just the kids these days. They're just not into hard copy of anything, it seems. So do you find younger people embracing this concept, or is it just they don't think about it because they're going to live forever?
I think, most of our members probably are in the later stages of their life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that I think a lot of them are realizing exactly what you just articulated, that their children and their grandchildren are like overburdened with stuff. And I think that there is a stronger propensity among younger generations, including my own, where like we don't want to carry a lot of stuff around. We move a lot.
Yeah.
Um, so that's just speaking from my personal experience. But I think that folks who have those family heirlooms they want to pass down are realizing that the digital outlets for doing that are really important to them, and it also makes it more widely accessible. Like there's only one copy of a particular photograph, for example, and
True.
it can only live with one person. And
Yeah.
so making it digital makes it more accessible
Yeah.
to more people in the family, and it like lets them have those precious memories as well.
Yeah. The other thought I'm having too is my mother came from a huge family and
Mhm.
they still get together every 2 years for a family reunion. And, the cake, the family cake is the family tree. And it's just extraordinary. Like my one uncle had, 8 children and his 8 children had all these kids. And now we're on to like all the way down. It's just nuts. But my thought is, wow, you could create just a branch for that family and
Mhm.
then give that younger generation, like say if I start it, then I can hand it over to Casey and then Casey can take it from there. Um, and we can upload all the Harmon memorabilia, because there really are, everybody brings all their old hard copies and their photo albums and all of that stuff to keep my grandma and grandpa's legacy alive. So how
Mhm.
fun is that to create a digital family, I don't know, a family archive of sorts?
Yeah, and it's not only, it doesn't just allow you to create like a historical family archive, so the things from your ancestors, but it allows you to capture your history as it's happening too, because we don't
Oh,
just have a web platform, we also have a mobile platform so that you can upload, if you're on a cross country road trip with your family and you want to document that, you can
nice.
instantly upload all of your stuff,
Ah,
all of your photos, and memories from that trip as you go, just
right.
directly from your phone.
But then someone would say, well, I do that on Facebook. But Facebook isn't encrypted. It's not private and people
Yeah.
steal identities and, you know,
Face- Facebook is great for capturing the social connections, and this is actually something that I talked about on our podcast just last month, called Our Digital Futures. And I talked with one of the researchers who helped create the legacy planning feature on Facebook. And it's really good at capturing the social connections that you have. But in terms of long-term preservation of your memories, of your history, of, your ancestors' history, your ancestors weren't on Facebook. Um,
True.
so it's, like permanent allows you to really build a long-term archive that will preserve those files safely and securely indefinitely. And that is one thing that Facebook can't do, or any other social media platform is not set up to do. So it's just
Right.
not the goal.
Right.
So yeah, you could upload it to Facebook, and if you want to make sure it's there for your great grandchildren,
Yeah.
then you would want to think more long term.
Right. This goes much deeper than just doing it on a social platform. And you don't
Mm-hmm.
know where that's going either. I mean, there's some
Oh,
scary
for sure.
stuff going on with that platform.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you mentioned your podcast, and when we last spoke last year, you were thinking of doing one. So it's called Our Digital Futures. Where can we find it? Where can people tune in? Because this audience that I have loves podcasts. So let's get you some new listeners.
Yeah, you can find it basically anywhere you get podcasts. It's
Okay,
on Apple and Google and
good.
Amazon and all of the big ones. And um, yeah, it's really focused on exploring all of the ins and outs of digital legacy creation, and that includes, topics and guests that have expertise in things like digital archiving and like creating legacies. And we're developing a lot of new features, so we're talking with people who have some experience in like specific niches around those features, so like metadata. And we have a few upcoming ones on um, mostly the legacy planning feature that we're about to launch.
I love it. Permanent.org is the organization, and Amanda Meeks is my guest today. Um, what a cool concept, and so timely for where we are in our evolutionary process on the planet, right? I mean, it's rather brilliant. And I love that you give back. And that you're allowing other organizations that are nonprofits to store all of their digital legacies. Um, we have a few minutes left. You had mentioned that you wanted to give the Next Room podcast listeners a special um, offer. What would that be? And then I'll tell them where they can find it.
Yeah, so typically a permanent account is always free. So anyone can sign up for a free permanent account. And when
Okay.
you sign up, you automatically get 1 gigabyte of free storage to start. But for your listeners, we are offering 3 gigabytes. So
Yay.
yeah, just follow the link, and that will take you to a sign up page where you'll automatically get 3 gigabytes of storage to start playing around with and making your own digital legacy.
I love it. And the link will be on the show page for the podcast and on the YouTube channel, everywhere that it posts. You'll see the link right there for permanent. Um, is it hard to sign up? You know how some people get like, oh, I got to go through and, name everything. Is it difficult, or is it just an email?
It's pretty much just an email. It's
Okay,
super easy. Yeah.
good. I love
Mhm.
that. And is there anything we didn't talk about that maybe you'd like to add to this podcast?
Well, I did mention briefly the legacy planning feature, and that I think is a really important feature that will also allow you to pass your legacy on to others. So it's a new feature. So when you sign up, you're able to create as many archives as you want. So you could have a family archive, you could have an individual archive, and you could also, have something like your life's work archive, for example, like if you're an artist or something,
Mm.
and let's say you want your creative work archive to be published 100 years from now, you'll be able to set that up on permanent so that it remains private until the date and time that you want it to go public. Or you can also give it to another steward. You can pass it on to another individual who would then also be able to, add to it, maintain it, and, publish it or share it otherwise how they see fit.
I love that. I've written both of my children love letters that they have not seen.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's all in my long hand and everything. But I keep thinking, well, what happens if that journal just gets tossed out?
Mm-hmm.
So now I can take a picture of it and upload it to permanent.org. And then when I leave, when I check out for the next room, both Betty and Thomas will have a love letter that I've written to them about how I feel about them, even though they know, but still I had to write it down because that's what I do. So what a cool service. Permanent.org. You're going to have a link to have 3 free gigs once you sign up through the next room, and the link will be right there. Amanda Meeks, you're a great spokesperson for this organization, and I'm so glad that we could make this work. I know we had a couple different things. You weren't feeling well, and then things happened, but I'm finally glad we got you on the show. Amanda Meeks is the Community and Partnerships Manager of permanent.org. Anywhere on the planet, you can digitize your legacy. You can save recipes and pass them down to generations because those get lost, the old recipes that are in grandma's hand that maybe only one person has. And I love what you said about a picture only lives in one space. I have a couple original photos that are of my grandparents, and I'm fairly certain my other 5 siblings do not have those because I was the picture crazy girl, and mom would let me go through the box and I would take them. And so I'll post them occasionally, and invariably I'll have a sister or my brother will say, I don't have a picture. I don't have a copy of that. And so I'll make them copies. But this is where everybody could access and save those JPEG or print it up if they wanted to put it in a frame. So cool service. Amanda, thank you so much for being on the next room. I really appreciate it. Any final words?
No, I just want to say thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited that we got to connect again and talk about permanent. And I hope your listeners really enjoy it.
Oh, I think they will. They're very active. And I just want to say thank you to all the listeners. And thanks for, following us on the new YouTube channel. And the Facebook page is a really cool community, really active community. Boy, I love that community. Really nice people on the Next Room page. So thank you so much to everybody that's listening today, and keep sharing the podcast, keep downloading the podcast, and please do me a favor and go find Amanda's podcast as well, because if you really, really want to know how this works, you're going to get all the insider information about permanent.org, and that is called Our Digital Futures. And you can find it where you find all of your favorite podcasts. Thanks again for tuning in to the Next Room. I will talk to you again in 2 weeks. Thanks for being here.